Hey viewers, my name's Kara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we're talking about spirit keeping. This question was asked of me on my personal channel, and I originally responded to it. It was either a message or a comment, I don't remember. But I initially responded to it with what I know of the subject, even though I don't really know it by the same name or terminology. And then I said, in fact, I might just pose this as a question to the Pagan Perspective. So that is what I've done. Before I get started, this week will be the only week that the regular hosts are posting during the month of December. Next week will be Subs Week, and then we have our traditional 2 weeks off for holiday break so that nobody has to worry about scheduling videos and doing things like that while we may be traveling to visit family for the holidays, etc. So for those of you who haven't been watching the channel for that long, we do this every year. We take a mini break at the anniversary where the subs take over for a couple weeks and the regular hosts take a break, and then at the end of the calendar year, everybody gets a break. So this is my last Pagan Perspective video of 2016, and it's an interesting one. I loved Rich's video. I think he gave a lot of really great examples. Honestly, I'm just thankful that he made his video as he did because, as I said, I originally responded to this person's question with what I know of the subject, just as a subject. And then today I decided to look at the website that they linked as well and found out that the website is a bit different than, not like what Rich was talking about, that it's different than what I expected, but that it claims a lot of things that from my knowledge of the subject don't appear to be true. So I'm not going to talk a lot about that website. All I'm going to say is I do not consider it a very good source, and it's not something that I want to discuss any further. I don't want to knock someone's life's work. However, there are several reasons from what I was reading on that website that I would not recommend it. So I'm going to talk about the subject just as a subject, like how I responded to this person in the first place, and then kind of touch on some of the things that Rich mentioned. So they were talking about the practice of what this website and these people who created the website termed spirit keeping. So maybe they did come up with the terminology. I don't really know. That's not the terminology I've ever seen used for it. That much is true. But the concept of a spirit inhabiting a vessel, some kind of physical vessel, and using that as a link to commune with that spirit or as a home for that spirit because they want to live there, they want to commune with people, whatever, is a concept that I have heard discussed before in numerous writings about shamanism. I read a lot about shamanism for a couple of years, a handful of years ago. Maybe like 4 years ago, I think it was when I was graduating college and I had a lot more time to devote to my practice and I was doing a lot of reading. I read a lot of different books about different types of shamanism, different traditions, I suppose, different cultures' views on it, and then lots of little articles and things. And this concept of having a spirit inhabiting a vessel is something that is talked about a lot within shamanism. At least the things that I was finding, it was mentioned several times. So much so that I couldn't really pinpoint a specific one, like remember the exact book where I had read it to tell this person, but I'm remembering like specific stories that I've read, and I know I read them, and I just can't remember which book they were in, because it might have been DJ Conway's By Oak, Ash, and Thorn, because that's about Celtic shamanism. It might have been in Yasmin Galenorn's book about shape-shifting and totem animals, because I recall that book talking a lot about communing with animal spirits, and the one story that I'm remembering has to do with an elk skull and the spirit of the elk inhabiting the elk skull in this person's home. It may have also been a book that one of my friends lent me, which was about sort of Celtic shamanism-esque, sort of that area, but it was The Mist-Filled Path, wisdom or guide for exiles, wanderers, and seekers. I messed up that subtitle just a little bit, but it's by Frank McEwen. But it's just kind of this overall concept that has come up multiple times. So it is something that I've heard of before, and in my opinion, it is something that's talked about in the community. However, it may not be being talked about by that name. It might not be being called spirit keeping, and it might not always be thought of or done in this terms of like being a collector, being a spirit collector. These are the kind of things that I was seeing on the website. So yes, maybe there was some coining of terms that is something that other people don't use for it. I don't know, I didn't scour the whole resource, but this is something that I've heard talked about before. I loved Rich's examples. As I said, Rich was able to talk about the connection with the Catholic Church and saints' relics. We have also done a topic on pagan perspective before. Someone talked to us in the past about using a physical item such as a crystal or any other physical item that you could connect or have two of. And for example, their question was, could you place something at a location, then remotely, when you are not there, have a personal connection to that item that would then connect you to the energy of that place? Similar to how Rich was talking about the rosary that he has with his friend who passed away, and that they have the other part of it. This is also similar to the idea of a best friend's piece of jewelry or anything like that. I wear a black obsidian necklace all the time now that was given to me by my best friend. They bought this for me for my birthday, and we wear them together, and numerous times they've talked about how just seeing it lets them feel more connected to me, and holding on to it makes us feel a little bit closer together. It's that same idea, even though obviously we are both living beings, and then doing it with the energy of a place may not be the same as a specific or an individual spirit, but it's this same concept. It's a concept that has been talked about and has been discussed. Another thing, just like a pop culture-y type reference that I thought of when I was watching Rich's video about it, was Bob, who lives in the skull that Harry Dresden owns from the Dresden Files. Bob is a spirit who inhabits a physical vessel of a skull and is bound to that skull. Rich was talking about the terminology of binding and how in this sense it's not quite the same as we might think of it all the time. In this sense, they're sort of like bound to that vessel for a certain amount of time. In the Dresden Files, for example, Harry can give Bob permission to leave the skull, but for reasons involving what Bob is as an energy, as a spirit, he has to be bound to some kind of host body if he is to be out in the sunlight. Things like that. But so Bob is an example of this happening, and I'm sure we could find more. And I know that there are several shaman path practitioners, followers, who watch my personal channel who would probably be able to tell you a lot more about the history of this practice. Maybe it was called by a different name, but it is something that has existed for a very long time. It is something that is done by multiple cultures and multiple paths. It's not something that I do in the sense of having that spirit. As I told Piping Druid when I was initially responding to their message, I said that I do not currently have any kind of spirit guides who I connect with on that kind of level where I know one specific individual spirit to where I would want to have a physical item to connect with them more, but it's absolutely something that I would incorporate into my practice if I had a reason to, or if I had a spirit with whom I needed to have that connection. I also don't have any home spirits or like spirits of my house, which was a very common practice throughout ancient cultures. Families and homes would have their individual spirits of the home or spirits of the family who were their protectors, who they would have little representations of, or there might be something like a vessel or some kind of artifact that was thought to be where they reside. There's actually another pop culture reference I just thought of in the second or third book in the Cassie Rivers Adventures series that was written by Kristen Keck, who is a local Ohio area pagan and author. In one of her books, there is a family heirloom that is very central to the book, and the spirits of all the ancestors of the family inhabit it, and when something happens to that artifact, it upsets the ancestors, and they have to figure out what this means for the... I'm trying not to give you any spoilers, but tell you what it is, because I don't believe in spoilers, so I would just as soon tell you, but I know that a lot of other people care about spoilers, and you might want to read the Cassie Rivers Adventures series sometimes. I think they're hilarious. But yeah, so that's another example of it happening. And I mean, I definitely have... Again, this is not exactly the same thing, but it's a similar concept of having that physical link to an energy or to a spirit energy, if not an individual entity. Am I making that distinction clear? Is that making sense to people? So, for example, I have my friend the willow tree where I used to live, and I refer to that tree as Willow, and I think of their energy as being female. So I say my friend Willow, and I use the pronoun she for that tree, even though it's a tree. Gender is not a thing, whatever. So I refer to Willow, my friend Willow, and I mean that specific individual tree, that individual being. But then I also talk about the spirit of Willow as being an ally to me through my connection with that individual friend tree, that the spirit of Willow, meaning the spirit and the essence and the energy of the species of willow, every willow tree in existence ever, as being something that I can connect with as well. So if I'm somewhere else and there is a different willow tree, it's not my individual tree that I have made offerings to over the years and developed a personal relationship with, and a physical relationship, really, because I can hug her, I can touch her, it's a tangible relationship, I go visit her. However, if I am somewhere else with a different willow tree, I can call upon my allyship with the spirit of willow through any other individual. So that's what I mean when I'm saying, like, you know, Bob from Dresden Files is an individual spirit, and there is that kind of, some people have a spirit guide who is an individual spirit that they connect with, and then there's also this idea of connecting to the energy of an entire type of energy, like the energy of cats, as opposed to the energy of my cat, Dawn. So this is not something that involves specific individual energy type dealios, but to use the technical term, dealios. But there are various things around my house, around all my different altars, that have a connection to an overall essence of energy for me. I have one altar that is dedicated to the essence and the energy and the archetype of the witch. I have an item over there that is a spider that was actually created by my friend Tia, who has a couple YouTube channels. I got it from her Etsy shop. It's a little spider, and I got that from her around the time that I was developing a lot of connections and having meditation experiences and spirit journeying experiences with spiders and that kind of essence. So I don't have a connection with an individual spider spirit, but the spirit of spider and the overall essence and energy is something that I connect with at certain times. So like that spider reminds me of that. There are probably more things behind me, I don't even know. And then I have different little knickknacks and things and different crystals and different candles and different things, and wow, there's just a lot of noise going on right now. There's a siren, and whenever there's a siren, the dog that lives upstairs starts howling, and there's just a lot of noise. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah, so there are not any individual spirits of like beings who used to be alive, who have passed, who I have that kind of link connection with. And I definitely do not engage in the practice of just collecting numerous spirits. But that concept of a spirit inhabiting a vessel and having that be a place for connection and a place for honoring is something that I have read up on, and something that I've heard mentioned before, and something that I find very interesting, and is something that in whatever way I see fit, I would be willing to incorporate into my practice. It's not going to be the same as what other people would do in their practice or the way that they would incorporate it, of course, but it is something that I know of as a part of shamanism. And that is the kind of area where I tend to find this concept being discussed and talked about. So anyone who wants to know more about it, that might be more of an area to look into those types of practices, because that's where I have heard it talked about. I hope you're all having a fabulous December. I am doing Vlogmas on my personal channel, which is when YouTubers make a vlog every day from the 1st of December up until Christmas Eve. However, since I celebrate the winter solstice, I am doing Vlogstis, and I'm trying to make it a little bit easier for my schedule, so I'm uploading every other day from the 1st of December till the 21st of December, which is the solstice, for 11 videos total. I'm also posting my regular videos in between there, so you can see more of me on my personal channel and find out more of what I'm doing this month. I also know that Charlie is doing Vlogmas on her channel, and she's calling it Witchember, which I think is adorable and fantastic, so check hers out as well. Anyone else on the channel who is doing Vlogmas, Vlogstis, Yule logging, as opposed to vlogging, or Witchember, or whatever we're deciding to call it, different names for the same thing. I hope that you will check those out as well. If you're celebrating the winter solstice, if you're celebrating the summer solstice, I hope you have a fabulous time and a blessed time, and I will see you on this channel in the coming calendar year. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.